I suppose I have been nominated to do some of the beginning speaking on this subject. The talk, as it is labeled, Tattoo Traditions of Native North America, I participated with Lars Krutok many moons ago. Lars Krutok originally was a scholar who was interested in worldwide indigenous tattoo culture. So he was working with the Smithsonian Institute. He became known as the tattoo hunter on the Discovery Channel and had many different excerpts that can be seen on YouTube. But what we did is we traveled California and interviewed people and photographed people, all of which had been receiving, living, opening up to, re-emerging our traditional tattooing practices. So for California, we traveled all over the place and found so many beautiful stories about the peoples, why they had got them, how they came across the information, some people in dreams. So for my story, I started my training when I was about 7, 8 years old with a doctor. But by the time I was 14, I knew sometimes in my dreams I would have the tattoo on my face, but I had no idea what it meant. There were no books at the time written that I had seen concerning the tattooing. And I knew then at the time when my mentor passed that I would receive this tattoo. I've had my tattoo over 22 years now, and a lot has changed during that period of time. I only knew one other person who had a facial tattoo that was traditional in my upbringing, and at the time when I got that, there was only the one person that I knew had only had it about 1 year. So it was a completely new game out there, and the information was not readily available on the internet and out there in the public for people to understand. So it was a new thing, and people would ask me all kinds of questions, why I would want to do that to my face, and so forth. But then it just became who I am. And I think that is really the stories that we would like to share, is that this is a part of us. It is not something we put on a daily and then we take it off. You live with it and you become because of your participation in that. And so I would like to, because I have spoken about this several times, I would like to be able to allow the other ladies that are here with me to share their stories and kind of their own evolution in this process of becoming, and the emergence and regaining of our culture through adhering to and participating in this type of sacred journey. Who wants to? Okay. So we're going like this. Yeah. I'm curious. Share whatever you'd like. Kind of how it happened for you, and how long have you had your tattoo?
I've had my tattoo for 3.5 years now. Okay. I've had my tattoo for 3.5 years now, and I came about the decision after a lot of thought and a lot of education. I am educated as a cultural anthropologist and an archaeologist, and so after a lot of thought and realizing what the ramifications of getting my face tattooed were going to be, I decided to do it. Probably a year or less than before I had it done, I talked with Sage about getting it done, and I was really looking for a tattoo artist that would do it traditionally. So my tattoo was done stick and poke, so it was done traditionally like my tribe. So my tribe is from Southern California. I'm a Hashiman from the Orange County area, and I'm also Mutsun Ohlone from inland Monterey Bay area. When you hear other people's stories, it'll be quite different than mine. Mine has some negative aspects. The day I got mine done, it was a really great day. I spoke to Sage the night before, and she says, "You're not gonna, backing out." And I go, "No, I'm going," And so I went by myself to do it because it was a really personal choice for me to do it. My family doesn't like tattoos. So I knew I would have some backlash from my family. And so 3 days after I got it done, my mother came over to my house and she saw the tattoo on my face and she disowned me and she hasn't talked to me since. So, but that's an opportunity for me to educate not only my own family, but to educate people in a larger scope. So for my master's thesis, this is what I'm working on, educating about the revival of the face tattoo in California. So, but this journey, it really opens up a lot of conversation. People don't have to ask me if I'm Native. They already know by the markings on my face. So it opens up the door for people to come and ask questions and talk about it. And, I think that that's probably the best thing that ever came out of getting my face tattooed, is being able to educate people about what it's there for, why I got it done, why the tradition was lost. For me, in the tribes of Southern California, it was lost really early because of the missionization of California. So the practice really stopped in the early 1700s for my tribe. So, but I wear it proudly, except when I go to work. I work for a large medical company that doesn't allow visible tattoos. So I wear gloves on my hands at work. And I cover my face tattoo when I go to work. And as soon as I clock out, it comes right off. So, but that's not a job that's going to be there for me forever. Because of my education, I'm going to be getting a new job. So I will be openly wearing it then. So. You ready?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Alicia, and my tattoo I just recently had them done on my 50th birthday. I'm not a great speaker, you guys, bear with me. These women are amazing. I just want to really acknowledge Sage also, because she has been such an inspiration for so many of us women that have wanted to do this. And she inspires me in so many different ways, just what she does with her life and how she lives her life, because what she talks about is what she does. And that has taught me so much about how important it is to be respectful about what we do and how we do it. But again, I got my tattoos done last year. There are a few people that, some of the other women from up north that get their tattoos done by a man he comes out from Hawaii, and he does a lot of the traditional tattooing for them. I've been friends with this one gentleman for about 6 years online and have followed him for a long time. He is Samoan, and he does the tapping of the tattoo, and I've been talking to him about it for a couple years, but I've wanted this tattoo since in my early 20s, and Sage doesn't remember me, but I remember her, because I used to go to DQ University, and I remember she used to come. I don't think you had your tattoos yet, but you got them soon after. And I remember her doing the tattoo, and I remember seeing her, and all I could think of is that's exactly what I want to do. And I'm also part Chemehuevi Nuwu from Southern California, and we also do the tattooing down there. My uncle did say to me, he's all, "Hey, Mojave," and because Mojaves also do the 3 lines. But from where I'm from, up in Concal territory, Koyunkawi territory, we did do the tattooing. It wasn't prevalent, and again, like these ladies said, there wasn't a lot of information out there. Very minimal information out there. We stopped tattooing very early. I even had great aunties, because it was suggested to me that I walk around with it drawn on to see how I felt about it. And that was suggested by Sage, and to see, how people would react to it, or how I would feel how people reacted to it, and my reaction from their reaction. And, I never felt uncomfortable, ever, not once. And again, people have said, extremely rude things to me. What's dripping from your face? Is that your Halloween costume? And I'm in an area where it's very prevalent of non-natives. So a lot of times I'm explaining. Sometimes I'm not always patient with that. One of the things I just say if I don't feel like getting into the full conversation and educating anybody is that it's traditional. That's basically what I say when I talk about it. But for me, I've wanted to do it for a really long time. At least over 22 years, and in fact longer than that. But it was my mom and my elders up there where I'm from that told me that I needed to earn it, and I feel like today, with my mom giving me permission that it was time to do that. This is what happens when you only have the tattoos for a year. You're still emotional about it, but
That doesn't really go away.
and it doesn't really go away, like Sage said. But for me, it represents who I am as a woman, and I'm so grateful for where I am in my life today. I raised we all have raised beautiful children, and my kids are Chumash, and their tribe tattoos down there, and they're traditional dancers. Same with Sage's kids over here. We're in this community together, and I actually for the first time felt a part of my community, like 100% after I did my tattooing, and I'm just really grateful today that I have the opportunity to be a part of this, and to be able to do this and be okay with it. I didn't do this just to have everybody acknowledge that this is what I'm doing. It wasn't that for me. It was something that I felt was so super important as a woman, and I'm hoping one day my niece will continue this tradition with us. My sister, Tiffany, just had hers done, 6 months ago. And, when I see other women with their tattoos, I get filled with so much gratitude and so much, I don't want to say pride, but I'm kind of prideful about it too. But I just get really grateful because, for me, this is not what I do. This is who I am. And, there's a big difference in that for me. And, my mom sitting here with me, telling me it's okay to do this and giving me permission was just amazing. And she's even, somebody had said, well, who gave her permission? And my mom said, well, I did. And that meant the world to me because that showed me that my mom respected what I was doing in my community today, and for me, I felt like I did finally earn this. And, I'm just really grateful for the women that have come before me and did this. If these women would have never encouraged me and blessed me with their knowledge of it, I don't know if I'd ever have been able to do this, So I'm just super grateful today for all the knowledge that I've learned, especially from Sage and the other women in my community. So that's it from me.
It is interesting when we talk about permission, we had this right taken away from us. We were murdered and ostracized and enslaved and all of that stuff for being the human beings that we are. It is our birthright as human beings to be who we are. Every single one of us was put here by Creator with a purpose. And this is some of our purpose. I didn't decide when I was going to do these things that I do and what I've done. When my mentor, Mabel McKay, passed away, I woke up in the middle of the night, and we do ceremony for that. And what's left behind is ash on your face. The charcoal stays on your face for a period of time. And I could see the shadow of this, and I just had to go and do what I had to do. I didn't have kind of mentoring that we do now. Those TV shows didn't exist. The books didn't exist. There were files of anthropological papers that then, in the future, one of the collegiates, Wendy Rose, did an anthology for some of the tribes of California. You can see some of the old drawings and Powers and Kroger and so forth, that there's not really a compendium of information that's available until very recently, when they had, Lars had done many of the studies, including the information that's not really out there, because many of the things you see, of course, in any anthropological papers are gleaned information. So you have your primary source material, and then a lot of people will come back later and pull from that and do thesis and so forth for their college papers. And a lot of these papers written in the end of the 1800s all the way through 1930s are still in basements in piles. So weeding through those piles to get some of this information had been difficult. But as we regain our songs and revisit our places of creation, our sacred places where dreams are made and springs that talk to us, the information is there. And when you walk and do those things in the right way, it comes forth from you and given to you the knowledge that you need to do these things. Because of that break in the continuity of passing down, because all of our ways were not written. We are oral, traditional people. So there was passed down through generation. There was broken chain. So guiding us back to ourselves has been a huge aspect of regaining that sacred information as who we are as beings. Most of us here know, I'm preaching to the choir, we were the last people in the United States to have the right to vote. After women and freed African American slaves. We could not vote, we couldn't hold land. We were the last people to get religious freedom. We did not have religious freedom as indigenous peoples of this continent until 1978. So because of that, the information was held and trapped and protected in rocks and trees and on the wind. And when you sit at sacred places, some of those things speak to you about what you need to do. And I think for all of us, the more we are weaving, harvesting our basket materials, being out in those places where our ancestors have gone to collect acorn and these things, the basket rush and willow, for so long, these things come back to us. We have a birthright of that earth being within us. It's running through our veins. Those places where we visit are part of who we are. And as indigenous people, it is our birthright to regain from those sacred places the knowledge that is held within. And those things are coming back out of dormancy. I wouldn't say coming back alive. They're alive. They've been alive. But sleeping and dormancy helped to protect those ways. And for all of the things all of us here know are going on even currently, we need these ways, and they need us to be balanced, solid human beings walking on earth. Oh, anybody have any questions? No questions.
No questions.
Okay, right here in the front.
There's a gentleman that comes over from Hawaii that does do a lot of the tattooing of the Native women, specifically up north, in the Klamath area and stuff. My gentleman that tattooed me was Samoan, or he's Samoan, and he comes up every year and.
Yes, yes. So the person she knows, of course, is Samoa, and the person who. So when I got mine done was so long ago that a lot of the grants and traditional folk grants were not available for sponsorship. But now we go in a timeline cycle and invite Keone Nunes and some of his people that he works with, who he's trained to be a true tatao, to be able to put the marks on people in the correct way. So he had been studying but not traveling. And that first group of women during the huge resurgence of this effort for the Northwestern tribes, specifically Hupa, the Tolowa and Karuk people, brought him over to participate as a group to get this done. So there were about 8 women who did it at one time. But there are a few different people who are being trained to be traditional tattoo people. One of those is Teresa Wright, who is also tattooed and is learning. And there are several other people I know who are learning the stick and poke style. And even the stick and poke style, there are many different styles of that. So when we talk about the Polynesian style, they use more of a comb style, which are sharpened bones, and it's in a comb, and then that's tapped in. There's ones that are shorter varieties, and then ours were more of single needle pokes. So some use bird bones, some use fish bones, some use cactus thorns. And then for the different pigments, we use the ash of bromus, California bromus, or California brome. And there are others, fescue mixed with nutmeg, yes, the nutmeg, or Toria californica, the native nutmeg. So the oils that, the nutmeg itself is burned, and then a rock is placed over it. So when that is going up in smoke, all those oils are being collected, and so that's what's mixed for the pigment. So all of these different tribal areas, depending on where you were, if you're near the ocean, you're going to use fish bones, or the water bird bones. The way they crack is very, very sharp. So there are so many different styles from all over the place. So in these early years, it has been very difficult to specifically get someone from your tribal area that knows how to do these things. We're in a renaissance, and so we're kind of riding the wake at this point for all the generations to come, as we gather in mass wherever we go. Like we're walking along Three Musketeers right here. It's pretty visible, pretty obvious that it's a different thing. A lot of people are asking if we're Polynesian or from New Zealand and so forth. And I like to remind people that we are Pacific Rim people. This is on the Pacific Ocean. And we have traveled the Pacific Ocean for thousands of years using those ocean currents to travel all over the place. So we have been doing cultural exchanges for much longer than the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Very much so. Global travel. So there are some people, some individuals here and there that are learning those traditional styles. And they really go for many, many years before they venture out to be able to do those things more in public. But there's also like Nahan from the Northwest area. They have a school now. So you go and you're learning the different pigments, the styles, the materials that are used to do the traditional tattoos. And then it's very specific, the iconic symbolization for those individual tribes would be different based on where you are.
So I passed all of them, and I've been wanting it for a long time, but I had to get into those passings before I could do it. But the only problem now is I don't have any for me, because I know I want to do it traditionally. But my question is, for you guys have to have a ceremony before you have got it.
I'm only speaking for myself, and anybody else, do you want to answer instead? The question is, so she's talking about a rite of passage, so earning the marks. And then once you've earned those marks and you feel that you've attained a certain place in your life, who can do those? Who can do it for you? Where do you find these people? You know? So part of it is you attain a certain level and feel that you have passed that space to be able to earn that. And then there's also who will do it, and then where are they in their life and their passing, right? Because someone who is just learning to do something, you wouldn't necessarily have them there, or they're not ready to do those things. And then what ceremony happens around this? For myself, there was no one doing any tapping or anything like that. I knew for sure I wanted someone to tattoo me that was 100% clean and sober. There was someone there singing for me. We had a space that was completely devoid of anybody. If you go into a shop, there's all kinds of noise. People are waiting and so forth. I didn't want any of that. So we had our own space. But I fed my parents. And we have feasting and we have giveaway. So things that you make, you give to people. Before time, this was associated with the flower dance. When you hit monarch, we used to be about 17 years old. When you had your first blood, when you had your first period, you were of an age that you were an adult and able to become a parent, a full-fledged member, and with all the responsibilities of being a human being as an adult in your tribe. That is not the case anymore. But we have now regained information, songs, and do have the flower dance. So at the time when people are doing their puberty dance, you are learning basketry, feeding people. You also do where you run around the entire village, or you dance all day long. So there's stamina involved. You know language, all these different aspects of who you are to become that full member within your peoples. So because it is separate now from the flower dance, for one, we start so much younger because of all of the steroids, estrogens, and everything, plastics in society today. We bleed earlier. So now some women are choosing to say, okay, I graduated from college, I did this, or I hit a milestone like 50, or these different things that would kind of gauge, okay, I'm at the point now where I feel within myself that I'm ready to do this thing. And then you go and seek, or you wait for them to come to you, who is it now that can do these things? And until you feel comfortable with that, if it's not a good fit, you know that it's not. So some of our ceremonies surrounding these things, because our ceremonies for certain things were 10 days long. Now when we do our seasonal dances, they're either 2 days long, or weekend, or we still have our big times. They last 2 days. Before, we would walk to these dances, carry everything we owned, and live there for a week. That's when you find your wife, when you make family, when you trade all your goods. So these things are a little bit different. So we have had to change aspects about these things at any time, like, get on in there. So we have had to modify what works for some of these things, utilizing as much of the traditional aspects of the ceremony as possible. We have to have water, we have to have certain herbs, we have to feed people, and all of those things rolled up into what makes sense for us would be very individual. Of course, most of us are mixed tribes, so where we reside and what the area we're in and what culturally would be most appropriate for us is what we participate in the most. So there are so many different factors in the question of what is right in terms of the ceremony surrounding this time.
That's actually a really good question, but that act only protects you if you're a federally recognized tribe, and neither of my tribes are federally recognized, so I do not fall under that statute. So. The lines, I've come from 2 different tribes, so they represent two of my different tribes, and then the one in the middle is a basket pattern. Because I'm a basket weaver, I chose that pattern.
Does this one work? Okay. With my experience, I just wanted to kind of go off of what Sage said and kind of let you guys know about my experiences. For me, my son came home from Standing Rock. He was there for 5 months, and my son dances for a roundhouse out Grindstone Rancheria, and he came home for the first time in a long time to come to dance. And my experience, or the way things happened with my tattoo, it all just fell into place, and we danced for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, into Sunday, and then I drove out to my tattoo artist, and I brought my niece up here, Kaya. Introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Kaya, and because she was there experiencing this with me, and before, like Sage was saying, the gifts that we gave, Kaya had gifted my tattoo artist one of the first pieces of abalone she ever cut. My son made some necklaces for this gentleman. We brought medicine to him, and it was at a convention, but we went into a private area, and the one thing that I found so beautiful was because of where they're from and how their traditional tattoos are. And my niece and my daughter-in-law at the time, my son's girlfriend, we were gifted with a flower song from Shelley, and so because we didn't get to do the girl ceremony, or I didn't get to do one, Kaya got to experience that, but I felt it was really important that we sang that song, and I felt so blessed to have her there with me, because she, the rest of the women in my family couldn't make it at the time. So, but my niece pulled through, drove us down there, because I had danced for I don't know how many hours straight with no sleep, and so I really felt like it was super important to have her with me, and again, singing those songs and giving, those gifts and payment, so to speak. And afterwards, which was even more amazing, is that they also have a ceremony after, and now they're like my brothers. That's what they call me in their language, is sister. So even though it wasn't, for me, it wasn't done traditional California, I don't know if I would want to do it any other way except, traditionally through our way, which again, there's not very many people that even know anymore, what we used or how we did it. I was told at one time that, they tapped it with obsidian and we'd rub that ash in. And I've heard pine needles, I've heard munmuni ash, the nutmeg ash, the oak ash, and even the bay laurel ash, I've heard about it. So it's definitely something that I would not change my experience whatsoever. Just even though it wasn't as traditional as my traditions, it was a mixture of both. You have 5 minutes? Okay. Well, did you want to say something about the tattoo experience since you were there?
Hey Tanani, Nikki Yasakaya. I am from this area as well, and normally, for our side, you do a women's rites ceremony, and that at the end of it, you get your first line. And when you get older and you have your place and you know who you are, you get your other lines. So I didn't get mine done when I was, how old was I? Probably 12 or 13 when I did my women's rites ceremony. And but it's such a beautiful process when you do a hand tapped or you do it in our traditional way. From there, these ladies can take over. But when you are young and you do your first original women's rites ceremony, when you come into a womanhood, that is when you get your first line. So you would be identified as a woman.
She's like, what are you taking a picture of? That way or that way? Oh, them. Okay, they're doing a selfie. As Kaya said, gosh, yeah. So yeah, 22 years ago when I had this done, my tattoo did not look like this. My tattoo was much thinner. Since that time, I have graduated to a certain level in medicine that I had not attained before. I became a widow. I became a grandparent. So all of those things add to that tattoo. And it's changed because of that. So when I started, I was loimus. So loimus is a flower. And then as you age, you become that pod, the seed, that even though you have pollinated and done these things, when that seed goes out, how much do you affect the rest of the universe when you become Pokaila? Pokaila is a whole nother level of, so when I started to grow into Pokaila, it was like, how did I get here, you know? And then I see on the changes on my face, like through the years of the changes that took place with those milestones. And so those first dots, for some of us, the first dot we get is here when you're 8, and girls tattoo each other. Because you get that when you first help the other girls with their flower dance. So there's so many different aspects of the culture that are embedded within the facial tattoo, showing who you are as a being, as a sacred being, pretending to be human, having that human experience, right? We're just walking around, we're stuck in these bodies, but that's not who we are. So we show some of that in this sacred journey that we're on, that we share with the universe.